Hey, what is up, guys? So I'm super excited for this video today because there's a lot of changes and some buffs and nerfs to cards I kind of want to look at. Mostly buffs in this case. Well, like 50-50. So, I'm going to just kind of go over the past like day and a half of what we've seen change, starting with we just got a new Sluggle effect. Well, not new, but a buff Sluggle effect. So, Sluggle, when you cast this Sluggle, you can move up to 3 water from your Underworld to your Spirit deck, and it's now a 2/2, not a 2/4. And there's some, lovely stellar art. Now, bear in mind, so this is a buff to this card. So it's now when you cast, it's not normal enchant in the past, now normal cast. So this is whenever you play Sluggle. So if you get a Sluggle off of Foamy, bam, it'll trigger. If you find a way to return Sluggle from your Underworld into play, bam, it'll trigger. There's going to be this is just straight buff to the card. I think it loses 2 defense points, so it's no longer going to be a card that you can potentially use to stall and get some resources back, but it is just like Ambrosia on a stick now, kind of like Boom Bats Earthquake on a stick. But this stick sticks around. So I think this is a great change to the card. It definitely is what like Moxie from Everything Lestrals wanted Sluggle to do, which is just when it comes into play, it triggers that ability. So basically, if you just get this cast from your hand, it'll work. Or if you use a Foamy ability to special cast it from your deck, it'll also work because cast encompasses both the normal cast and a special cast. If it's a just normal cast trigger, it'll state normal cast. If it's only on special cast, it will state special cast. When it says just cast, it means both. Now, how does the cast change kind of affect some of the other cards wording? So like here's when the Cinder receives fire, your opponent must remove 3 cards from their top of the deck onward. So it still reads the same. Receiving is still receiving, whether that's by enchanting, through nexusing, etc. Those are still actions you can take. So receive cards don't really change. They just, again, still say when they receive fire, yada yada yada. When you have a card that's just on a normal cast trigger, like Smoltuga, so Smoltuga is when you normal cast Smoltuga, search your deck for a 1-fire Elestral, add it to your hand. So this wouldn't trigger off a Foamy, whereas the Sluggle would, because it says normal cast, not special cast. Next, I have some buffs and nerfs to go over. So Aeolus, the only thing that changed here that you might not have noticed when Dan showed this card in Discord earlier today, earlier today I believe, you can disenchant 2 Wind from Aeolus to search your deck for a 1 Wind Spirit Celestial. That is a huge nerf, but that's because this card was way too strong before. So before this nerf, Aeolus is basically a 1-cost search your deck for any 1 Spirit Wind Celestial. And if you know anything about the 1 Spirit Wind Celestials, is they're super versatile. You have Sorlet for combat tricks, you have P-Gust to disrupt back row, you have Exaltair to go aggro, and you have Nimbug to go into your combo Stratamoth play. On top of now, we have the Pantera line with Hydrake. Aeolus was a card that will only have gotten stronger and stronger and stronger the longer it exists, as more 1 wind drop Celestials get revealed. So making a disenchant 2 is now, think about it in this way. At worst, Aeolus is kind of like a weird knock. So you can Nectar of Gods for 2 mana, draw 2 random cards. Aeolus is now, you can basically at minimum pay 2 on Aeolus to go search a specific card with some restriction. Before his nerf, Aeolus was almost like a super Nectar of Gods that took an extra turn to work, but both draws are, I'm just going to look for what I need, which is insanely strong. But now with this change, I think you're going to see a lot more Aeolus being played on 2 to go tutor something right away or search something right away. You're not going to see a ton of Aeolus played on 4 because that's risky, because someone could Tornado your Aeolus or someone could Thunderstorm your Aeolus. But either way, this Aeolus change is going to be super, super like nice to play versus, and it feels bad if you're a win player. But I think it is a needed change because Aeolus was by far the strongest Divine Rune. The next strongest would be Hephaestus, but at least with Hephaestus, with the runes, You need to have Elestrals in play to interact with the runes. So if you're pulling an artifact into play with Hephaestus, well, now you need to actually put that artifact onto something and then do something, and then that artifact can get disrupted. The Elestral gets disrupted. It's a little bit shakier of control. Where Aeolus is like, I'm just going to get the Elestral I need to answer what you have on board right now. And it was really strong. So good change. I appreciate that nerf. And the last, basically a buff, but more or less a clarity change, is to Sonic Core. So this Sonic Core cannot be chained by counter runes. As long as it's in enchanted attack position, neither player can activate counter runes. The rest of the stats are the same. So the change is the Sonic Core's cast cannot be changed by counter runes, and the previous wording was like the Sonic Cores cannot, or enchanting can't be stopped by counter runes or something weird like that. So with this change, the whole weird Gorgon's Gaze interaction with Sonic Core trying to ascend no longer works. So now, once a Sonic Core is being like, I'm announcing that I'm playing my Sonic Core, you can't activate Gorgon's Gaze on the thing that you're trying to ascend to with Sonic Core. It gets rid of that whole situation, which is so nice. It's a little bit of a buff, but not really. It's more of a clarity change, and it really does help the card actually like make a bit more sense with this wording. Assuming you understand what chain is. A chain, if you're familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh, you're probably familiar with chains. Chains are basically, if I activate an ability, you have a responsibility. Like, it's the abilities aren't resolved yet, but they're all kind of in space getting ready to resolve. And it's how counter runes work. Someone goes to attack, the attack's on the chain, you counter rune it. Now the counter rune's on the next part of the chain. Counter rune triggers, attack will trigger, yada yada yada. So chains are weird in very niche circumstances, but I don't think they're going to make chaining too complicated in this game. Unless we want to have like Magic the Gathering stack shenanigans and all of a sudden you just 30 triggers on a chain and it gets really weird. Hopefully, we'll see what happens with that ruling. We're still waiting for the official rules, but I like the Sonic Core change. I like the Aeolus nerf. And then going back to Sluggles, like, I love the Sluggle buff. Water, a lot of people are saying, is the weakest. I don't really think Water's super weak with like the addition of Mestation and Galaxy, and we have Tadpuffs, even though the Tadpuffs aren't in the prototype decks, but Water's getting some nice buffs so far, and I just hope he doesn't push the water buffs too far. That being said, clearly all of our playtesting and enjoying and just having fun with the game has, brought certain issues to Dan's attention and the rest of the Celestials team, just as far as balancing goes. So the more you play, just, if you have a problematic interaction or you find a card's too strong, talk about it in Discord. Everybody's in there all the time. I'm in there chatting, Moxie's in there chatting, like all of the content creators chatting. If we find issues, we can put them on blast. Dan's in there all the time chatting, so if Dan wants to just like, oh, I see your guys' conversation about all this, well, he can go change stuff. Literally, like we were complaining that Aeolus was a little too strong, and Aeolus has now changed. So the community feedback portion of the game right now, I think, is super awesome. That Dan's just like listening to everybody, changing cards around as he feels that would help the community feel a bit better or whatnot. I don't know his exact motive behind how he wants to buff and nerf cards, but I think he's really trying to listen to the community to make the game as good as it possibly can, and I appreciate that. And I hope all you guys keep playing the game, because I've been having a blast with it. And together we're all kind of working towards making a better game before that Kickstarter launch on November 15th, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so that's pretty much the end of what I have for you guys today. Please, if you don't mind, I would appreciate those subscriptions, those likes. They're free. It really, boosts my ego, as I like to say. I appreciate that. I'm just glad you guys listen to me rant half the time. So I am super appreciative of all of you. And go check out the other content creators like, Magic Moolah, Jay Johnny, Everything ELESTRALS. Eagle the Duck has been making some great gameplay content. Go check all of them out too. Give them some support. Check us out in Discord. Talk to us in Discord. We're always in there just messing around, having fun playing games. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video, and maybe we'll get some more buffs, nerfs, and other cards to talk about as we go. Guys, have a great day or night. depending on where you are or when you're watching this. Peace.